but like as a creator, there are so many platforms that you can create for. So it gives you a ton of options to create, you know, short form vertical content for Reels, YouTube Shorts, and TikTok. And then also like main channel videos are kind of approached a little bit differently than like a vlog channel video.
Hey friends, welcome to Smart Venture Podcast, the best information for future CEOs. Starting a company is easy, but growing and managing it is hard. In this podcast, we sit down with the best founders, experienced leaders, and investors in tech and relevant space to give you the best tips to grow your company and grow yourself. Some of our most popular episodes are about crypto founders and investors. Check out our new podcast called Keeping Up with Crypto on YouTube, iTunes, and Spotify. If you like it, don't forget to subscribe and give it a 5-star. This episode is brought to you by Momento NFT. Momento NFT is a direct-to-fan social NFT app that allows fans to own viral moments from their favorite creators and unlock perks like meet and greets, autographed merchandise, and more. As a creator, you can easily create valuable images and video NFTs of your best social content. And as a fan, you can own viral moments from your favorite creators and unlock perks like meet and greets. Momento NFT is backed by Annie Mocha brand, Cadenza, and Mark Pincus. Check out the app available on App Store and Google Play. Hi, Lauren.
Oh my God. Well, thank you so much for having me.
I guess like majorly I have like two bracket of questions. One part is like you were a creator, right? Like you were in the DIY craft era and then you decided to kind of like doing like a transition between like a teen girl to an adult, and then you were doing podcasts with your boyfriend, and then you were just doing like vlog videos. You have so many channels. You were on TikTok. Just to start the show, like, can you describe how many phases that you went through, and then like what was the journey like for you as a person?
For sure. So it's been like 10 years of making content. So there's been a handful of different phases. And I think the first phase is like the most unplanned, right? For most creators, because you're kind of getting into it just like as a hobby, you know, you don't really have direction or like, obviously you don't have goals at the beginning, but it like hasn't, at the beginning, you're just like doing it for fun. It's just a hobby. And then for some creators, you get lucky enough that it kind of takes off. And so I would say at the beginning was like the core of like the DIY phase. And I think that's like when I first started, and I didn't realize that like people were invested in the personality and not necessarily the actual DIY content. So I was so focused on doing like really in-depth, like specific DIY tutorials. And it took me so long to realize that people just like wanted to hear about the person behind the actual tutorials. And so I think there was that phase where I started being, you know, a little more transparent about who I was making content. I started vlogging. I had a pretty public relationship at the time. So like that was a part of the content while still doing the DIY stuff. I think it was like a balance of also like kind of bringing the personality side to it as well. And then I think this wasn't like a planned phase, but it turned into like a very family friendly focused phase of content, which again, I would have been in my early 20s, and it was like not something I planned for at all, but I more was just like, oh, like if I can be family friendly, like why not? And then I would say like 4 or so ish years into being family friendly, I started feeling really kind of suffocated by the filter that I had to put on myself. Not that I was like off doing crazy stuff like in my regular day-to-day life, but I was definitely filtering out a lot of just like what I was doing as like a mid 20-year-old girl, like living in LA. And so I made the very conscious decision to start kind of transitioning over to having a more authentic voice within my content. So again, like DIY and creativity has always kind of been like woven into my content. But I think the main thing is just being, you know, like a personality and being yourself and being able to connect with your audience. And so there was that phase where it was like the transition. And I would say that was one of the harder phases to go from, because it was a more dramatic change, probably the most dramatic I had had kind of like in like the LaurDIY quote unquote brand. And not everyone always embraces change. So I definitely faced a little bit of backlash from younger audience that felt like they could no longer relate to me. But like in the interim, I also was connecting with women who were kind of going through the same phases of life as me, which was really nice. And so I was having more authentic conversations with people who were, you know, in that similar age range and just like having similar life experiences. And then now, like, as you mentioned, I've kind of taken a little step into crypto and the NFT side of things, which has been really cool. And it's something that's kind of been all around me for the last year and a half, 2 years or so. And I got excited about it. And there's just so few women in the space too, that like I love kind of being a voice for it, but also just kind of advocating and trying to share the educational side of what this whole space can be and what I think it will be in the future. And, you know, normalizing being a woman in this space.
Totally. I have so many questions on the business side too, but I just want to say, like, you just make it so personable and all the stuff that you put out. I was just like, I feel like, you know, we're having a conversation, even we're like not. So, back to the creator journey, right? Like, I'm just curious, like, how do you have like any time that you actually shut down? Because like you're blogging your life, right? Like vlogging and then video tape every experience. I feel like you have to intentionally kind of create this image. I know like for being on a podcast, like you have to kind of emphasize on certain points. And then like, it's like super different than like you are having a conversation with your friends. I'm curious, like, what is your day-to-day like? And then like, how much of you that like I've seen are like, you know, if I like interact with you like offset and everything, how do you kind of like make this happen since you're also on like literally every platform? How do you envision like the different images that you are trying to kind of portray on different platforms?
I think one, like finding balance as a creator is so important because like you said, it's like you're not that you feel obligated, but like as a creator, there are so many platforms that you can create for. So it gives you a ton of options to create, you know, short form vertical content for Reels, YouTube Shorts, and TikTok. And then also like main channel videos are kind of approached a little bit differently than like a vlog channel video. So it's like you're saying, like there's many kind of like not faces that you put forward, but you know, it's different. It's different. The way that the content is packaged is a little bit different depending on kind of like the end placement of where that content is going. So finding the balance is really important. I think taking breaks is really important. I think for me, like for example, I just went to Coachella this weekend, and obviously that's like a content heavy weekend for creators because like everyone's creating. There's so much going on. People are really excited about the content, and so I tried to make a few pieces of content, like a couple vlogs that were like dedicated moments. I'm like, okay, I'm going to take day one of Coachella out of the 3 days and make like a really solid vlog out of that. And then day 2 and 3, like I might take it easy and, you know, make some just like shorter form content, but not be like so stressed about like the pressure of making content. So I think it's like having as much of a schedule as you can too. So like planning to take an easy day off where it's like, if you feel like making content, great. If not, also great. Just to make sure that you have that balance of being able to like live in the present moment and not feel like you have to capture everything as it's happening.
Okay. So when I think about my content as a podcast, right? Like I think about like, how can I create repurposable content from this conversation, right? Like, let's say if we're having a conversation, I'm going to turn that into like a long form video, long form audio, and then short form video for like tiny other platforms, potentially a newsletter. So like basically, how do you repurpose one piece of content into like 80 pieces of content?
I know, but it's smart. It's like, yeah, it's something that I think every creator has to think about because it's like you have to capitalize on the time and the resources that you're investing into making one piece of content, especially when it's a long format piece like a podcast. So for example, for our podcast, Wild Till 9, we record the episode, and a few days later, we have the vertical version that our editor gives us. And we have an assistant editor that will go in and kind of chop up like the highlights of the podcast. And so, you know, less than 60 seconds that can be put onto TikTok, Reels, and YouTube Shorts, which is great. So I think there is a lot of benefit, even though I think there's a lot of overlap in the platforms and maybe, you know, it can be a little repetitive. I think because there are different audiences on each platform, there definitely is an asset and a benefit to having that one piece of vertical content that can be uploaded in 3 different places and hopefully, you know, reach the widest amount of people that you can.
Okay, so question on that. So you are literally like mastering every platform, right? Like how do you budget your time, and then which platform do you focus on from pure time to time? Because you started on YouTube, right? Like you were dominating there. a lot of YouTubers I follow, then like they transition well on Instagram, but like not on TikTok. You are like, you have 2 million plus on TikTok, and then you have like 5 million, 4 million, 5 million on Twitter, I believe. So you're like literally dominating everything. I have friends who have like, 3 million on TikTok, but have like 300 followers on Twitter. So like, I don't see them translate that well onto different platforms. I'm curious, like, how do you make that happen? And I bet you're like making a conscious effort to grow each platform. How do you kind of like plan this for yourself? Which one do you start?
I think it's understanding the audience that you have on each platform too. Like, and also like a big part of this answer is that I've been making content for so long, and I've had Twitter for so long, and I had TikTok when it was Musically. And so I did a few collabs when it was Musically with Kenzie Ziegler, who was a massive muser or whatever. So when Musically transitioned over to TikTok, like that like number of followers just transitioned over to the app. So not to say that like I don't deserve that amount of followers, but because I've been doing this for so long, I think there's definitely been a role that plays in having so much carryover. And same with Instagram. Like I've had Instagram since 2010 maybe. Like it's just been so long, right? So it's like you amass so many followers over that many years of making content. It's you're bound to have some kind of growth at some point. But I also think ultimately it's understanding the audience of each platform. So TikTok, for example, is the audience that I have that is the most separate from every other audience that I have. So I feel like there's probably the most overlap on like YouTube and Instagram, maybe a little bit on Twitter, but TikTok is an entirely different audience, I think, because of just how the algorithm works. And so when I'm creating on TikTok, I actually rarely ever make kind of like DIY content. And even though like my username obviously is still LaurDIY, and I've done some DIY content, it's making content that I think is much more similar to the vlog channel kind of style. So it would just be like quick, easy personality things and like funny, relatable things about my dog. And it's very much just like a personality driven page versus anything that's like got a very specific brand and type of video that I have to stick to. And I think that's what does well on TikTok, is just like the fun, not thinking too much into it, and kind of just being yourself type of content on TikTok.
Totally. What do you think is your unfair advantage? Because I think you're such a talented creator, but what do you think makes you like set you apart among like other creators? There's so many people, started with like where you are at, and then like now many people are gone, to become like transparent. Like I feel like a lot of people, I just don't see your YouTube channel anymore on my feed. But you're still there, and then like you're spot on every trend, right? You were talking about like you collaborate with Kenzie when it was like Musically, and you're very early on NFTs, and like how do you really spot these trends? Like how do you know which one is for you that you're gonna go after and then make your name like known in the space?
I mean, I think for trends, it's more just like what I'm interested in. And that I think is like the most authentic for me to like actually be interested in to make content around, is like what's exciting to me and what do I actually want to make content with. And I think because I share such a common interest with a large portion of my audience, because we are so similar in age and stuff like that, I think that like if I think it's cool or interesting, just like, I'm like, hopefully you guys also think it's cool and interesting, which I think, for the most part has worked out pretty well. I would say crypto is, because I feel like I'm so early on that, is has a little more resistance to it than like suddenly getting into a new brand of makeup or something like that. I don't want to be like, oh, like this is what makes me better than everyone, because like I by no means believe that whatsoever. I think every creator brings something unique to the table, and that's what's so great about kind of like the creator economy, is that it's, although it does have pros and cons, is very much based off of someone being themselves and being authentic, and the individuality behind each, quote unquote brand or creator. I think the one thing that I have really strived for over the years is being dedicated to evolving. And I think that's why you see a lot of creators kind of fall off, or I think a lot of creators too have also been making content for so long that they just don't want to do it anymore. It can be grueling, and it's emotionally takes a toll on you. And so I completely understand that part of things too. If someone wants to take an indefinite hiatus off of being a creator, because, some people just aren't cut out for it. But I think over the years, I've been really dedicated to evolving and, trying to decide what's next, what's going to make me happy, what I think my audience will be excited about, but ultimately trying to not let the content get so old or stale or repetitive that there's not a reason for someone to come back.
Totally. When you're designing yourself in your head, like what was your image? And then what was your role model? And then like, because you're thriving in like so many different phases, like how do you create this consistent image of you? Because it's so hard when you mentioned about, you were this family friendly content creator. And then now to, like we will talk about her anything in your podcast, right? I cannot believe you collaborate with all these like, I believe Harry Jealousy and then Heath and Zane, like literally like those people are not like what I expect to see on your channel, like
Totally.
that they all happen, right? Like who do you look up to and then how do you kind of like put this vision into like life?
To be honest, don't have like one singular person I'm like, oh, this is my role model. I think I pull inspiration and kind of like motivation from a handful of different people. Like, for example, there's so many incredible women in business and, leaders of NFT projects and speakers that I've met in the last 6 months to a year that I'm so inspired by, like watching them kind of be at the forefront of like the NFT and crypto movement. And so I think seeing that, I'm so inspired by those people. But there's also creators who have been making content for so long and continue to stay relevant, continue to make exciting content. And like, I'm inspired by that. Even someone like Mr. Beast, like watching him and people like Casey Neistat as well too, like push the boundaries of what a content creator can be, I think is also really inspiring. And so, it's like pulling pieces of inspiration from different people that I've been exposed to kind of like as I've gone through life and been part of the creator economy, I think is kind of like the main thing that's kind of pulled myself together is just finding little pieces of inspiration from different places.
Totally. So like think about it as like a business, right? Like when you're making your own personal brand and then like consider the income streams, like you have YouTube, you have like these other social media platforms, and then you have your podcast, you have your merch line, like, and then you invest, I believe you invest in Lolly.
Yeah,
That's awesome. So like how do you kind of like create all these different business income stream, and then like what do you think you personally focus on, and do you envision yourself like just leveraging your brand to do a lot of collabs, or like do you feel like you are going to launch your own line to like the Chamberlain coffee or something?
Totally. I don't really have any interest in doing my own line of anything specific. At least that's not in the plans right now. I feel like there's not a specific product that I'm like so drawn to where I'm like, I need to do this. I need to do it now. I need to make a product that's better than the competitors.
Wait, not even glue gun? I'm just kidding. You need your own LaurDIY glue gun, okay?
I know that would have been incredible. But I think I've always tried to focus on diversifying my revenue streams. I think it's a mistake that a lot of creators make where it's like they focus all of their time and energy onto one revenue stream, and that can be really dangerous because the creator economy is so unpredictable. For example, if I don't know if you remember Adpocalypse that happened when the advertisers with YouTube all pulled out suddenly, and so YouTubers and creators who like their entire revenue stream was dependent on the AdSense portion of YouTube, like, were panicking because it was their main bread and butter. Not to say that's not a common, denominator throughout a lot of creators, is that AdSense is a big portion of it. But I think it's really important to diversify your different projects and your time and energy. So obviously YouTube for me will always be home base. That's the AdSense portion of the revenue. And that's also like the brand deal portion of the revenue. But I think also because I try to also have like a bit of entrepreneurial spirit to like everything I do too, being able to connect with people like Alex, the CEO of Lolly, and be a part of that, I think is really cool. And so I've tried to kind of dabble in different areas and not put my eggs all in one basket. I think also, working with HBO Max and doing Craftopia, like that was also an entirely different revenue stream that was completely separate of YouTube. Which I think was another diversification that is, a great way to just kind of separate the different streams of revenue.
Totally. What is, I guess, like your biggest commitment? So like, I know, you're like on TV now, like, honestly, I think I saw your ads in front of like a Subway in San Francisco.
Yeah. For
you're in like a green dress or something.
Yeah.
I was like, oh my God. But anyway, so I'm curious, like what do you think is like your biggest focus in terms of like making money? Because I think you just seems like so smart and like you got in tech early, but I think it's really smart to like diversify your income and like how do you spend your time, right? And then you're also managing a team. So it sounds like you have many assistants or like editing people. What is the streamline of your daily workflow? Like, do you wake up at like 7 and then like manage assistant for like 2 hours and then like respond to brand email or like how does it work for you?
I'm someone who thrives under as much structure as possible. Like I'm a very
Mhm.
type A individual. And so
Mhm.
I think it's taken a lot of adjustment for me to kind of
Mhm.
figure out how I work best in a schedule because day to day everything does look so different. Like I don't have
Mhm.
like a set shoot day each week. I have like a general idea of when I
Mhm.
want to shoot, but for vlogging, like that's kind of just like on the go. And for main
Mhm.
channel, like I don't upload on a set weekly schedule anymore. So that gives me a
Mhm.
little more wiggle room, if I have to have more meetings or whatever. Um,
Mhm.
I will say, I think the pandemic was an opportunity to see how efficient everyone can be by doing
Mhm.
Zoom meetings instead of having to spend so much time, especially in LA, in the car going to and from
Mhm.
meetings. And so I think people have learned, that like not everything has to be so face to face, and everyone doesn't spend so much time in the car commuting to meetings. But yeah, my day to day looks very different each day. So, like today, for example, I was up by 8. I had a little workout session with my trainer, and then I was up answering emails and then doing this podcast with you. I have another meeting afterwards, and then I have some sponsored content that I have to finish later on. And then we're going to record a podcast probably around, 8 p.m. tonight. So,
Wow.
the schedule is kind of like it's very much not within a 9 to 5, which I think that
Mhm.
I would really thrive under because again, like I love a good schedule and I love a good like structured day,
Mhm.
but it's not really how this job works as much as like
Mhm.
I can schedule like the meetings and the emails within like a certain time frame, but like the content creation portion of it is just so kind of like around the clock that it's, you just do as much as you can and try and find the balance.
Totally. I believe you have like a brand person you've worked with or like an agent since like many years ago. You've been working
Mhm.
with them like for 7 years or something. How did this person find you? And then how do you know if you can trust someone? Like because it sounds like it's very chaotic in the entertainment space.
Yeah, it really
And
is.
yeah, like and then like do you deal with something on your own too?
So all of the brand portion of stuff that goes through a management company. So I've been with the
Mhm.
same manager for 8 years now, like 7, 8 years. It's been
Mhm.
forever. And so they just reached out over email and when I was living in Toronto still, and we've been working together ever since. But I think that I got really lucky. There's a lot of shady characters in like the management and agent side of entertainment, especially in the creator space, because there's so many creators and a lot of them are young. And it's really sad to see that they get taken advantage of. So I got really lucky finding a great team to begin with. But yeah, I also have, a team of lawyers. I have business managers. I have an assistant. I have a creative assistant, graphic designers, editors. And that's been a team that I think I've pulled together just gradually over the
Mhm.
years. Again, it's been 10 years. So as soon as I can kind of afford to bring someone else into my team to help me free up time, like I don't love editing videos. I would say I'm
Mhm.
pretty good at it, but it's not something that brings joy to my life. And
Totally.
so
I
when
don't
I
think
was,
it's draining.
oh my God, it's so draining. And I'm just not in love with the process. So, like, as soon as I was able to afford an editor, I was so excited to bring that person onto my team so that it frees up more time for me to do video planning or taking other meetings and doing creative stuff because, like,
Mhm.
I can for sure hire someone who likes this process more, but is also better at that process than I am.
Mhm.
So being able to recruit people onto my team that are able to do what I do, but even better, I think has been a major asset in being able to grow the brand overall.
Totally. How do you like find these people? I think it's incredibly hard to
It
recruit and
is,
then
yeah.
like managing it at a reasonable rate. And
Hmm.
like, I think it's insane. Like, and then like how many people are on your creative team? And then
Hmm.
like how do you, I guess, like find these people or train these people to be doing things that like in the
Yeah,
way that you want
yeah,
them to do?
totally, totally. I know, and it's a process. I would say almost everyone on my team has come through a referral or recommendation
Mm,
by a friend, which I think is like the most valuable recommendation that you can have is from someone who's worked
mhm,
with them and can speak to how they are as a business partner. So
mhm,
again, I've gotten really lucky. I have had an influx of different editors over the years, but for the majority of the past like 5 years, I've had the same team of editors, which has been great.
mhm,
And so obviously 5 years later, They have my editing style down to a T. Our communication
Mhm.
has evolved a lot over the years, but it definitely is a learning process to kind of bring someone, I don't want to say up to speed, but to align someone with kind of what you're looking for. And again,
Mhm.
I'm super annoyingly organized. So when I start working with someone new, I might give them a bit of like a brand guide. So I'll like break
Mhm.
down my brand as much as I can, as like that would make sense to someone who is, on day one of
Mhm.
learning what I'm looking for in my content, my editing, my graphic design. And so
Mhm.
trying to provide like examples or color palettes and
Mhm.
font typefaces to be as helpful as I can to help both of us through the process of kind of like onboarding and getting
Mhm.
aligned.
Totally. You have so many different products. I feel like Wild Till Nye is very different than LaurDIY brand, right? Like, are
Mhm.
they all edited by the same group of people, or do you use like separate people?
Yeah, different team. So I have an editor for the main channel videos. I've got an editor
Mhm.
for the vlog channel videos, and then a different editor for the
Oh my
podcast.
God. Oh my God. A publishing house.
I know it's
What does a backend look like? I mean, I think people are underthinking it. You are doing so many things. I have to give you like a lot of credit for, because imagine if day one, like Monday, you're shooting Laura DIY channel, and then Tuesday you're shooting like the vlog, and then Thursday you were shooting like TikTok or something, and then Thursday or like Friday you were shooting a podcast, and that week flew by, and then you have to design what's the theme, what you're going to talk about, doing some research, sometimes inviting guests, and then you have to promote stuff, and then you have to like interact with people on your social media channel. I'm like,
oh my
mind
god, so you could be an
blown.
influencer. You have the whole to-do list down.
No, dude, like I really need to like, I mean, I just like I feel like you're a productive queen. If like one day you decided to like, go after the productivity guru, I think you have a huge chance to win.
Well,
you
thank you
know
so much. That's
Seriously,
so
dude,
nice.
like it's crazy. How do you do so many things besides being so organized? And then like what does your backhand look like? So you mentioned there's like different
Mhm,
team for each stuff. How do you
mhm.
manage them? I feel like if I were managing it, it's chaotic. It's gonna be chaotic.
Yeah, I think the biggest asset has been that it's been very gradual. And so I think if I just like brought on like five new team members right now, it'd be like, oh my God, like how do I handle this? But I
Mhm.
think because I had a manager and that was kind of like the first piece, and then I brought on a personal assistant, that was kind of like the next piece, because obviously like to bring on a
Mhm.
new personal assistant is a lot of work. That's like
Mhm.
it's to be completely aligned and to trust them, with things like your passwords, your house keys, some of like your important
Yeah.
documents. Like that's one of those things that I think a lot of creators really struggle with, is finding like a really
Mhm.
incredible personal assistant. And so I've been lucky enough to have someone for the last 5 years as well too. That's been just a
Mhm.
consistent person in my life. And then after that, I think it was business managers who are incredible. Again, similar to the editor, like there is no reason why I should be tackling my own taxes when that'll just end in like I'll be in jail because I won't do it properly. You know what I mean? So it's like hire the professionals as soon as you can afford them. And
Mhm.
that was one of the biggest assets of like taking a massive amount of stress off my plate by having a business management team that can help, process the invoices and making sure people get paid the right time and like all of the legality behind all of that. And then I think having a lawyer as well too, like as you start to grow bigger and work with bigger brands, like having that add on to your brand and your company, I think is something super super important. And then after that, oh, editors were sometimes in the mix. So yeah, I think that people going into like the creator space don't realize that it's also like a job of managing
Oh
people,
my God, it is.
which yeah, like I didn't even, you don't even think about that when you're starting just you and yourself in your dorm room with a camera by yourself. You know what I mean? Like you don't think about like how you could be managing a larger team later on. And it's just been a learning process since the beginning, and luckily it's been pretty gradual, but it definitely is something that you are forced to learn pretty quickly, of like how to manage people and like kind of
Mhm.
be the boss of your brand. It's like not something that anyone can prepare you for.
Totally. If you're starting a brand from like scratch today, like if you're
Mhm.
starting like being on social media today, which platform would you go after first? And then at what point, like, I mean, like, how would you do it differently than like when you first started?
TikTok 100%. I'd start on TikTok
Mhm.
110%, like so confidently I would say that. I think YouTube and Instagram are so incredibly oversaturated. I think it's nearly impossible, not completely impossible, but I think it's very, very difficult to fight against all the other content and the algorithm to get your content seen. Whereas I feel like TikTok gives new creators a more fair advantage in being able to get the content served through the algorithm. That the TikTok algorithm is just so interesting and unique. Like I think if a creator were to upload 30 videos, like one of them is going to get more eyeballs than the others. And so it's really interesting to see how TikTok is giving creators, I think, a bigger opportunity at finding their audience for the content they're making. So I would for sure start there, and also consecutively try to build that brand over on Instagram as well too. And then maybe put in that, like, vertical content on YouTube Shorts too, because obviously like the AdSense on YouTube is much bigger and substantial than what you can make on Instagram and TikTok. But I do think that because like the influencer marketing space is so robust and there's so many brands trying to partner with influencers, like I don't necessarily think that you would need YouTube as one of the key streams of revenue for a creator. But I would for sure start on TikTok, but also consecutively try and build that brand across other platforms as best as I could as well.
Totally. Is this only applied to like I guess like the lifestyle or like entertainment based YouTuber or like creator? Or do you feel like everybody, let's say like a knowledge based YouTuber should be like, not YouTuber, creator also should start from like TikTok?
I would honestly, in all the genres. I personally, that's what I would do if I was a new creator in any of the genres.
Totally. How do you come up with so many ideas to shoot the podcast and then the the YouTube videos and then the vlog? Like I'm gone. Like, I mean, shooting one piece of content is hard. And then like okay, so I tried YouTube video once and then like I didn't realize you have to write scripts. You have to film with like a really complicated camera. My camera has been sitting in my room for like 2 years. I did not shoot anything. And then there's the editing is, oh my God, editing is a nightmare. Even for podcasting, I would edit like 9 hours to like 1 hour, like audio. It's insane. Like how, like, I guess like how do you come up with the ideas? And it's a struggle. Like, I don't know, like, do you write down your script first or like, do you just like go freestyle? Like, what is your creative process for that?
So the podcast is great because I have Jeremy to bounce things off of. So we might jot down a few things that we want to talk about, or like, for example, again, like this weekend we were just at Coachella, so it's like we'll just like decompress of what happened over the weekend, which is great because that'll be just very conversational. Like we won't have to plan anything about what we want to talk about this weekend, unless there's like a specific funny story that we like want to remember all the details to or something. There's luckily that can be the most conversational and free-flowing piece of content, especially because it's such a long format piece of content. And then same thing with vlogs. Like if there's something interesting going on, great. But if not, like people love just seeing like the day-to-day mundane tasks that you would do about like cooking breakfast and stuff like that, and doing like opening packages that come. So I think vlog also too is like low pressure in terms of having to like plan or script anything. And then the main channel is a little bit different. I think for me, I've struggled, over the past year or so of like finding kind of what kind of content I want to make. I would say none of it is entirely scripted. I would say the only time I really script something is that if I don't want to forget something, I'll be like, oh, I want to make sure that I mentioned this, this, and this. Or if there's key points to a storyline that I want to make sure that I don't forget. But I also have a creative assistant that helps me kind of see what other people are doing, like what would make sense for my brand, what's kind of trending right now. And so I have a creative assistant that helps workshop ideas for the main channel, because I think that algorithm on YouTube for the main channel is very different than the YouTube algorithm for the vlog channel. So that one kind of needs a little more thought behind it, and the audience is definitely different.
Totally. Wait, so you have a assistant to like just like basically coming up with some creative ideas? How do you find these people to do these? And then like, what do you think are, I guess, like for a starter, like if you're building a brand in like a very early on, besides like an editor, who would you hire first? Like which part of your business you feel like it should be replaced by someone else first?
Editor for sure first. I think anyone who can handle the logistics of your business, I think that, and an editor, because I think editing, although very, very creative, for me it felt like a logistics thing, because it was, you know what I mean, like for me that just like didn't spark my creative
Totally. Yeah, it's hard.
It's hard.
It's
So I
boring.
think,
Okay.
oh, it's just, I think because it's so tedious and I
Mhm.
don't know. Anyways, not for me. So editor was the first thing that I kind of added to my team. And then I think, yeah, anything with logistics just frees up more time for you to be creative and come up with content for your own brands. Because I used to say this all the time. Like, I wish I had a second version of me to just have a second brain thinking about the creative process. But I
Mhm.
think if you can find someone who again can do what you do but do it better, that's even more valuable than having a second version of your own brain.
Mhm.
And so for the creative assistant, I actually found that person through my audience, and I put out some feelers and some like a job position essentially through my social media platforms. And I think 4 or 5 years ago, this wouldn't have been possible when I had the much younger audience. But now that I'm reaching such an older demographic, it was incredible. And so I actually just hired a Discord community manager as well too through my audience. So I've been able to
Wow.
find some really great people just through my own community, which I think also makes so much sense because they understand the brand. They've been, part of the journey, and whether they've been watching content for, 6 months or 6 years,
Mhm.
they have a much better understanding of what my brand is versus than what a stranger might know.
Totally. Oh my God. I feel like, you know what you should do next? You should start a business course. I would totally buy it because there's so much behind the scene of like how you should make a YouTube channel and your personal brand to function. Like, I don't think people even notice. Like, I think when I listen to your interviews, like many of them just talk about like the entertainment side or like the creative side, but like I feel like you are such a business genius to like, not letting people leave, because I feel like if I were you, like by now, like my manager would be like, went on to do something else. I don't know. Like I think it's hard to like manage someone. It's hard to like find these people. And then like
Mhm.
even like the smallest thing of like what you put into your job description to make people want to work for you. And then how do
Mhm.
you maintaining them and then not get fucked over? Like I feel like those are
Yeah.
signs. These are not just like easy. Like I just sit there and like someone else does this for me. It's impossible. I think it's definitely like worth a lot of credit for. And yeah, like I'm serious. If one day you're like doing a course or something, I will sign up your cohort.
Oh my
It's
God, that's so nice. That's so nice.
no
Yeah, I
like
mean, I don't know. I think a lot of creators who have been blessed with the opportunity to like make this their full-time job, I think a lot of them don't capitalize on learning about the business side of things and
mhm,
learning and understanding how to run a business and who to have your team and how to make your team stronger. And that's
mhm,
something that I've always been really interested in and trying to learn. And so like talking to other female business owners who don't, might not necessarily do anything in the creator space, but like I have a friend who runs her own VC, and like it's incredible to like learn from her. And so even though she runs an entirely different business, like there's so much to learn from her just in terms of like being a female founder. And so I try to stay not so like head in the sand of like just the
mhm.
creator economy and trying to learn from different people in different industries.
Yeah, totally. Like, I mean, we touched on this a little bit early on, but like, who do you think is on your personal board of advisors?
My mom. She's gonna be so
That's
excited to hear this as
awesome.
well too. But no, she I think is a really great temperature check. I think of like even a podcast guest of like who she's excited about. She's like, oh yeah, like that makes a lot of sense. Or like
Mhm,
even from a business element of doing like a gut check.
mhm,
She might not necessarily know the terms of a deal, but she might be like, oh yeah, like that's a no-brainer. Like, do you really want to do that? Like, does that really
mhm.
make sense? So she's always someone I feel like that can provide like a reality slash like gut check.
Mhm.
And then also my manager, we've just worked together for so long that I think he has a really deep understanding of not only the industry but also what makes sense for my brand. And he's been a big part too of being able to creatively evolve over the years, and he helps me brainstorm and we can workshop ideas. I think also my boyfriend, he's kind of worked on the other side of the creator industry, so he works in crypto now, but like he's worked on the other side of like more in the music industry beforehand but working with creators.
Mhm.
And so he's a pretty good gut check too on just like the entertainment industry in general. So I think it's pulling from like a few different areas of not necessarily just someone in like the YouTuber space. And then I think other creators as well too. Like I think my closest friends, are living their own creator journeys and experiences, and they're always a great place to start with like bouncing an idea off them to see what their initial thoughts are.
For sure. How do you envision yourself for the future? of, let's
Mhm.
say like 10 years from now, what do you envision your brand does? And then like how much time would you spend on like content creation and how much
Mhm.
would you spend on like, making your own business?
I think it's going to start to like lean in the direction of business again. So, like I
Mhm.
want to be very clear. So far from having kids, I'm so far from having kids, but I just can't see myself being someone who is going to be like any kind of like family vlogger. Like I just don't think
Mhm.
that that's something that's in the cards for me. And so like I love creating now. I love vlogging. I love being able to like
Mhm.
document parts of my life and share that, but I'm interested to see kind of like how my feelings towards vlogging will change in upcoming
Mhm.
years. Again, like I'm loving everything right now, so comfortable with everything. But I think as things progress and, I get older and,
Mhm.
I want to have kids in the future, whatever, I can see myself shifting definitely towards like the business building side versus the content creator side.
By business building side, do you feel like you want to just keep building up your own brand, like the Laura DIY brand? Or do you see yourself, let's say, joining a company, then
Mhm.
like as a CMO or like chief content officer to promoting that thing?
Definitely like I would not be like a on like a C-suite level type of situation. That's definitely not like a goal for me
Mhm.
personally. But I think maybe there's a world where I could be like on some advisory boards from like an
Mhm.
influencer perspective or something like that. And like, who knows where like this
Mhm.
whole crypto and NFT thing goes as well too, like as that
Mhm.
grows more prevalent. So I think there's lots of options, lots of things I'm excited about. I would say I'm definitely not interested in being an executive at like one specific company.
Mhm.
But I think there's hopefully a world where I can offer kind of like my expertise and experience of being a creator and like the creator economy in a more business forward direction as well too. Again, like in the future, I'm not entirely sure what that's going to look
Mhm.
like, but it's definitely something that I think about for the future.
Totally. When you're investing in these like different small like tech companies or like
Mhm.
startups or like when you're thinking about this, like what do you look for in return? And then like when you're partnering with them, like I think I listened to one of your podcasts, you would sometimes you would pick which company you are willing to go for. And then like sometimes it's like a deal come to you. How do you manage these relationships and what do you look for when you're seeing a company that you want to invest in?
I think it's like something that I'm personally excited about. So Lolly, for example, like
Mhm.
when I found out about Lolly, I was like, oh my God, this is such a good idea. Like this is insane. And so like I got an intro to Lolly, but I like really like chased after that opportunity because I was like, I
Mhm.
feel very passionately that this is a genius idea that I think will
Mhm.
do really, really well. I think also too, as I was like in the early stages of getting into crypto,
Mhm.
I think I was like, this is so accessible for people like me who are just getting into it and like
Mhm.
want to understand and I want to own Bitcoin. But like, I don't necessarily, at the very beginning, don't know how to go about doing that. So it's like, you're telling me that like
Mhm.
I can go buy Starbucks and get Bitcoin back. I was like, say less. Like, that's amazing. Like, what a great idea for a company. And so I think also, too, like seeing how the creator economy is just growing so fast. I think that
Mhm.
there are a lot of tech products that are catering to needs of different creators. And like, do I think that this will be saturated in a few years? Like, yeah, probably. But like, I'm hoping that I've made some decisions based on being an influencer and knowing what I needed as an influencer, even in the early days of starting up. So, for example, there's a company that I invested in, and the name is Stir. And so, like, they
Mhm.
focus on doing like creator focused like payment splits and helping to organize your finances. And like that's something that I would have killed for when I was like
Mhm.
sitting on my apartment floor trying to organize my receipts and like figure out, my finances. And so like understanding the creator process and like the workflow and understanding like the growth and development that a creator can have, I
Mhm.
think also lends itself to having hopefully a perspective that makes me make hopefully fingers crossed good investment decisions.
Totally. Why don't you create your own, creator tools? I think you would be perfect for it. And then you can have all your friends, the whole Asian squad to like Asian girl squad, like to basically promoting it. And then you guys will have a business like right away, right?
I mean, I think one, I don't know. I think going to business with your friends can be very risky. And I think I like having, most of my business ventures very separate from like a lot of my personal relationships. And I think on the other side, like the flip side of that is just that like there isn't a creator tool that I feel like is missing right now for me personally. Like, there's not something that I feel like I don't feel like there's like a specific gap in what I need personally as a creator. I think there are so many incredible tools out there right now. And I don't personally, I haven't identified something that I need to create because I'm missing it.
Totally. I think you mentioned you don't want to do business with your friends, but like you started podcasts with your boyfriend, and like, how do you deal with like these kind of personal relationships? I would feel so scared. I don't know.
Totally. Yeah, no, I mean, it's something that we had like a very serious conversation about, because again, like I try and, you know, keep business and personal stuff in the sense of like making a company together as separate as possible. And so we didn't even start having a conversation about this until about a year and a half into dating. And it was a very serious conversation in the sense that like, if something were to go wrong, like we abandon the company, like if our relationship becomes rocky in any way, we abandon the company and the podcast immediately. Like it's always going to be like personal relationship over business. And the way that everything is structured, it's 50-50. So even if we were to break up tomorrow, you know, it just dissolves and goes 50-50. We also too have very different skill sets, which I think is helpful in not having any kind of like clashing or crossover. So like I'm more of the creative side of everything, and he handles a lot of the tech side. So like the microphones and the cameras that he wants to use, you know what I mean? And like the filters and all the audio recording equipment, like that's more of his expertise side, where it's like I handle all of like the branding and the graphic design, I do all the thumbnails. And so I think where my strengths are his weaknesses and vice versa, which I think is really helpful. And we kind of identified that before going into this at all. So it was like a heavily thought out process before we even considered, you know, going into business together. And I think also too, the big part about having a podcast is that even if we were to have a really messy breakup, say tomorrow, I wouldn't regret any of the conversations that we had, because they were just so conversational, and we're talking about things that have already happened. So it's like, we're talking about stories that happened in college. And so just because I had that conversation with my boyfriend, like it doesn't change the fact that whatever that story was happened in the past. And so that's kind of where I sit on that specific element of business.
Dude, I think you're so smart. I'm just like so impressed, because like, you know, in the past, I only watch your like entertainment side of you. Like I really, because like it's all about like, you know, I feel super relaxed when I'm like watching your videos. But I mean, I personally would have like anxiety to letting people get to know what's happening in my personal life. How do you kind of like conquer that fear, or like, I mean, even just like random people, like a person, let's say like I haven't talked to for 2 years, and randomly see one of my posts and then like send me a message, I'm like scared. I don't know. Like, I'm just like, who are these people?
I know. It's something, again, that you learn over the years. It's been 10 years, and it's something that I've like learned how to process. And you definitely get tougher skin over the years. Not to say that like the wrong comment on a day where you're not feeling great can just throw off your entire day. Like that for sure happens to every creator that I personally know of. And again, it can be emotionally tolling, but I think at the end of the day that like, I'm just so lucky to have the job that I do, that I understand that it can be part of the job. And, you know, that doesn't excuse people from being just like total assholes on the internet, but platforms do a decent job and are working on getting better at being able to filter out specific words in comments, which is great. And so you can have a blacklist. I think on most platforms, Twitter, Instagram, TikTok, and YouTube for sure, I'll do the blacklist feature. So it can filter out specific words. So it helps cut down on like specific hate that you might not want to see. But yeah, I mean, I don't know. I just try and be confident in what I'm doing. And I know that I love my job and I love what I do. And I want to do this for as long as possible. So I think it's, you know, trying to not ignore, but to not place so much value on the opinion of someone that doesn't actually know you as well too, I think is really, really important of a stranger.
How do you choose what to go after, what not to? Because I feel like there's so many opportunity probably presented to you every day, right? Like, how do you stay focused on, you know, even like from like which platform to get on, or like spending time on, and then to, you know, responding to fan mails, or like to, you know, like creating different business lines. Like, how do you stay focused? And then what do you think is your core thing that you will never let go?
Oh my God. I mean, staying focused is really hard. There's just so many platforms now. Like, I feel like TikTok has just been such like TikTok has just grown so much. And I feel like it's such an incredible tool to find a new audience. And so like I've definitely felt pressure to create more on TikTok. But then like YouTube will always kind of be home base for me. That's always like the core of like the brand on YouTube. So that'll kind of always be like the ground zero for me, or, that'll be home base for me. But it definitely is difficult to kind of plan the content. I would love to say that I had a better content schedule in terms of like creating for different platforms, but it's kind of just like, it's a little more chaotic than I would like it to be, for sure.
I guess like in the future, do you see yourself like creating any type of product line? I think you mentioned that you wanted to kind of like invest, but like, because I feel like it's such a no-brainer for you to just like launch your own clothing line or something. And then like, I guess your content kind of like shifted so much from the beginning. How do you keep the audience entertained from like, the beginning to the end? Like, I still want to, right now, I still want to watch your videos, like the podcast and everything. Like, I feel like it's just so hard because even like the celebrities, can you name a celebrity that's still hot, like from 10 years ago? Like maybe just like Jennifer Aniston, period. Like, I don't really know who else.
So I think the first part of that question is, so how do people stay engaged is tough. Like, I don't necessarily have like a specific like formula for keeping people engaged. I think it's like, as long as you're making content that like you feel is authentic to you, and like, especially with the vlogs, like, you know what I mean? I love following along with people's life, whether or not it's really interesting and they've got like parties and events and travel and stuff like that. Like, for example, Remy is a great example of someone who's like life that I love. Even if she wasn't one of my best friends, like I would love watching her vlog, because like she's talking about like how she's going to do X, Y, and Z. And so you want to like see that process. It's kind of like watching like the plot of a show just kind of happen like video by video. But it doesn't necessarily need to be so like action packed. Like, it's more just like the relatability that I love about that. And so I guess I assume that's kind of where a lot of my audience hopefully might feel about me, is, like seeing my dog in each vlog, and like traveling with us when we like go somewhere, or like knowing that I have a wedding coming up in Kentucky next month. So like people are like, oh, like I wonder what's going to happen there. And like, we'll get to see like that portion. So it's kind of like just the relatability of the follow along type of energy. And I think also too, like the people that I enjoy watching are always creators who I either relate to, but also just have like a positive energy that I feel relaxed when I watch. You know what I mean? Like, I don't want to watch someone who's like really chaotic or full of drama, that like I leave that content feeling like more stressed. So I think the people that I'm also the most engaged with are the ones that leave me feeling like the most positive, just like the energy or perspective that they give based on their content. So shockingly enough, making a product, unless you're just sticking to just e-commerce, is a ton of work. And it's very costly with very little return. So anything with licensing, especially anything that's going to be in a retailer, is like you're making between 7 and 12%, which is a crazy low number. But if you're doing something that's just e-commerce and you own the brand, that can be closer, like 70, 80%. But again, like there's just nothing that I feel like is missing that I need, that I think other people need. And like, not to say that if I identified something in the future that I thought would be incredible, that I would love and that my audience would love, that I wouldn't do that. But right now I just feel like there's more value in me making content and connecting with my audience versus trying to sell them something. And there's just not something that I feel like is, I don't know, like I just don't think that every creator like needs to make something just because like they can make something, if that makes sense. Like just because you can doesn't mean that you should.
Totally. I think you should make your own like NFTs, because I believe you mentioned about that in one of your podcast interviews. You're you have a song that you wrote yourself, and like if that's the closest thing, probably you will make an NFT out of.
Yeah, I don't know. I think that it's a little bit too early for my audience to see the value in that. And I never want my audience to think that I'm just trying to like gouge them for money. Yeah, exactly. And so I think until NFTs are more widely understood into like what the value and the utility can be behind them, because like right now the reputation is not great. And as much as I try to help shine light on like where the value and utility is behind NFTs, I just don't want to give the wrong impression of like what my goal and priority is with crypto. So I think right now, like the education perspective has been the most useful and hopefully the most valuable for my audience. So I think it's still just a little too early.
Totally. Okay, so we'll have a 1-minute fire round for you. So what's your favorite book?
Favorite book is Atomic Habits.
What's your content diet look like?
Oh, dog content, 100%.
Dog content. Who made the biggest impact in your career?
Probably in my career. I'm doing terrible at this. It's like a rapid fire question. I thought this was going to be like, what's your favorite ice cream?
Okay, what's your favorite ice cream? We'll just end there.
Favorite ice cream flavor is cookie dough or cotton candy.
Oh, I love cotton candy. I just had a cotton candy ice cream yesterday from Coastone. But anyway, okay.
Big fan.
Thank you so much, Laura, for coming into the show today.
Yeah, thank you so much for having me.
Thank you for listening to this week's episode. If you enjoyed today's episode, please hit the subscribe button so you don't miss out. Have a wonderful day.